Hello and welcome to my first devlog video ever. I'm Micah and this is my game, Mart. I've been wanting to make a devlog for quite some time now and I finally decided to just suck it up and put something out there. As you can see, the game is already well into production, so in this video I'm going to give you a little background on my game dev journey, where I'm at in development right now, and what I hope to accomplish in the next 5 or 6 months before ultimately releasing this thing on Steam. If you like what you see, go click on the link below in the description and wishlist the game. As is the common phrase among many game developers and a lot of devlogs that I watch, art is not one of my strong suits. Besides drawing pictures of Vegeta, Goku, and Teen Gohan when I was younger, I spent most of my creative energy on music growing up and not art. So when I started my game dev journey a few years ago, I thought back to playing RPG Maker on the PS1. My brothers and I would spend hours on here trying to create the next Final Fantasy while listening to the same background track on repeat for hours on end. I had a lot of fun with this little program when I was a kid, so when I remembered its existence and found RPG Maker MV for like $10 on Steam, I took the plunge. I started working on a game about a college student that runs into a girl that he's been seeing in his dreams for a while, which leads to a series of events that opens a portal to a parallel fantasy universe. I'd never written an ounce of fiction before in my life, so just coming up with the basic plot was really enjoyable. Now, one nice thing about RPG Maker is you don't have to worry about the art, which seems like a perk at first until I realized my game would look exactly like every other RPG Maker game out there if I just used the stock sprites. So I purchased a pixel art software called Hexels, which is honestly better suited for isometric pixel art, but unfortunately it took me a while to discover the golden god of pixel art softwares, Sprite.
I am the golden god of this place! I reign supreme!
So I booted up Hexels and began my pixel art journey, starting with a jumping corgi animation using my own dog as a reference, then took an image from the Cursed Images Reddit page and made a pixel version of him. I like this guy and hope I can use him in a game someday. Then I started working on some custom characters using Cadence of Hyrule as a reference, made a tree, a bridge, a river, and some rocks. When I imported these into RPG Maker, I realized my sprites were too small, and I started to think that this wasn't the right engine for me. Aside from the custom art limitations, I wanted to push beyond the confines of a basic turn-based RPG, which was pretty hard to do with RPG Maker. I did some quick research into game engines and discovered Unity, which I really didn't like very much. I don't like the UI, creating tile sets and ensuring that your sprites line up is a total hassle, and as a total noob to coding at the time, C# just wasn't doing it for me. So I did what most 2D pixel art indie devs do and made the switch from Unity to Godot. And my gosh, I absolutely love Godot. It truly is the god of 2D pixel art game engines.
The golden god!
So I imported all my sprites into Godot and started working on my custom art top-down RPG game. And I came across two big problems. Number one, creating the art and animations at this resolution was taking way too long. And number two, a big story-based parallel worlds RPG was going to be too big in scope for my first project. I was pretty discouraged at this point and took a break from game dev for a while. I had my first kid and kept chugging along at my day job. One day at work, a janitor was walking around doing his janitor stuff, and I thought, hey, it'd be kind of cool to make a game about a janitor. Maybe even like a stealth game where you start out in like a gas station and then you get promoted up to working in high profile corporate and government offices, and in between taking out trash and cleaning up, you can sneak around and discover juicy secrets and steal stuff. It would be way more simple than a sprawling RPG, and I could start with a super low pixel count for the art, so sprites and animations would be really easy to create. When trying to think of another game that used low-res pixel art, the first game that came to mind was Crawl. This game is just so much fun and looks so good even with the simple pixel style. On top of their low pixel count, they only use 2-directional animations, so every movement or action, up or down, just uses the left and right animations. This was the exact inspiration I needed for my own art style. Now I just needed to find a better program to do the pixel art in. Like I mentioned before, Hexels is fine. It has its perks if you're doing isometric pixel art, but when I checked out Sprite for the first time, I was totally blown away. The UI is clear-cut and gorgeous, making animations is a total breeze. It is absolutely worth the $20 price point. I looked up some images of the janitor from Scrubs as a reference, stuck to a 16 by 16 pixel grid, and the low-res, bi-directional janitor man was born. I started plucking away at the environment sprites, using the janitor for scale. Less pixels means less work, but it also means less detail. 1 pixel can make or break the object you're trying to make. Once I had a good amount of objects, I threw them into Godot and started working on my first bit of code. Now, Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite game series, and I've always loved the feeling of crawling under a table or something and hiding from the enemies. So this was my first attempt at a similar mechanic. I actually really liked the way it turned out. I can't think of many 2D top-down pixel games that let you lay down and crawl under something, and I gotta say, it feels pretty cool. I implemented a simple AI to patrol around the room using Godot's built-in navigation 2D, and this is actually about as far as I got with this game. This became one of many little games I made that didn't get that far, but I was doing it as a hobby over the weekends and late nights, and I was having a really good time learning how to code and flexing a different creative muscle a little bit. I spent a little more time away from game dev, and instead put my energy into something I had been dreaming of doing for a long time. Writing music for video games. If I'm honest, I think I started developing video games just so I could write the music for my own games. I found Stephen Malin on YouTube and bought his book on how to start making money as a game composer. He suggested pulling some songs together into a music pack and selling it on stores like itch.io and Game Dev Market. I looked through these stores and noticed there weren't many music packs in the style of Animal Crossing, like cute, simple, short loops for different seasons or times of day. So that's exactly what I did. I made some songs that were cute and short and simple and called it the Seasons Music Pack. This little side project turned out to be a really good investment. Soon after releasing the pack, I got an email from a developer of one of the most popular games on Roblox. They had bought my music pack and wanted more, so my dream became a reality. My music was going to be in a video game. That's actually what most of my YouTube videos are right now, 9 months worth of original Roblox Islands and Bed Wars music. So go take a listen if you want. It's also available on Spotify. I'll leave a link in the description. After I landed that music gig, I was feeling super encouraged and inspired and was ready to hop back into game development. It was time to enter my first game jam. I looked on itch.io's jam calendar and found James Plus Games was about to host a jam. So I entered and began working on a little simulator called Mart. I took what I learned from my old Janitor game, borrowed some of the sprites and animations, and came up with a few fun game mechanics. I took some inspiration from Diner Dash and Root Beer Tapper, trying to get merch in the right spot at the right time. I tried to make the game as learnable as possible. I guess what I mean by that is you start the game up and there really isn't a question as to what you're supposed to do. A green box goes with a green shelf, you pick up your money and you order some more. I drew up some characters, randomized their spawn locations, and what merch they wanted to buy. I had the game keep track of how many gross dollars you made and had the customer spawn relative to that number. Ultimately, for only having 7 days to work on it, I was really happy with the results and I got a lot of great feedback. A lot of players had a hard time even finding the office to order more merch, which was my fault for not making that super clear. There were a few bugs here and there and no start or pause menus. A lot of this is to be expected for a jam game. But I think the most encouraging feedback I got from many people is that there is potential here for something more. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. I'm making this into something greater. It's been almost a year since that game jam, and a whole lot has happened since. The months following the jam, I made a few updates to Mart, but also spent time working on other projects and spent a lot of time with my family. Everything was pretty normal until late last year. My wife and I decided to make a pretty crazy life change. With lots of thoughts, prayers, and money saved, I quit my engineering job and we moved across the country. We had a lot of circumstances surrounding our decision, but ultimately we were excited to take a stab at becoming self-sufficient. As of recording this, we're about 3 months into the experiment. I've been working full-time on composing music, tutoring math and science, and developing Mart into a full Steam-worthy game. By the way, if you need a math or science tutor, you should totally hit me up. All my students meet with me over Zoom now, and with my fancy little tablet and pen, I can write directly on your screen over Zoom. You can email me at toomanyfishstudios@gmail.com, mention this video, and you'll get your first session free. Okay, self-promotion over, back to game dev stuff. Since settling into our new home and getting my office set up, I've been able to do what so many dream about doing. My main full-time job is making a video game. I know how ridiculously unlikely it is to run a sustainable indie game dev business, and I know about the numerous indie horror stories of failure on Reddit, but you know what? I'm gonna take a shot at this anyway. If I release Minimart and it's a total flop, that's okay. If tutoring and composing isn't making enough money to sustain making more games, then so be it. I have no problem jumping right back into engineering and may end up back there even if Minimart is a success. But right now, I'm having the time of my life. So you've seen what the Game Jam version of Minimart looks like. It's available on itch.io if you want to try it out, but honestly, I've been debating taking it off there completely. I might need some advice on that. I just don't want players getting the wrong idea and conflating a game made in 7 days with what it is now or will be when released. But I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments. But right now, we can take a look at where it is in development today. I have 2 main development philosophies for Minimart. Number 1, when all is said and done, it needs to be a game that I would buy if I saw on Steam. I spent a lot of time browsing through the new releases on the Steam store, trying to find something that I want to buy that isn't already doing okay with sales, like 15 or more reviews, and I promise you I have yet to succeed. To put it another way, every single game I've run into on the Steam store that interests me has at least 15 reviews, and 15 reviews usually means about $5,000 in sales for a $10 game. To me, this means that if I can make a game that passes my own standards, it has a chance of being a mild success. I know marketing is a huge deal, and I know you can't expect to sell your game just because it's quote-unquote good. But at the very least, if I'm objectively looking at my game and liking what I'm seeing, I know I'm on the right track. I've gone back and forth with my own perception of my game. Some days I think I'm creating an absolute masterpiece, and other days I'm confident that it's absolute garbage and that my own family won't even buy it.
Hopeless.
My second development philosophy is that the game needs to be around 2 hours long and needs to be consistently fun for those 2 hours. This is exactly what a short hike and Luna's fishing garden were able to achieve. A small scope, but extraordinarily polished. I'm actually willing to say that a short hike is one of the greatest games of all time. I mean, it's not going to make it on any IGN top 100 games lists probably ever, but I think it is the most satisfying 2 hours of gaming I've ever experienced. I mean, just look at the Steam reviews. I've honestly never seen anything like it. It's such a simple game, but because of that simplicity, Adam Robinson Yu was able to really fine-tune the experience. Now, Luna's Fishing Garden is a less popular game, but to me, this little fishing game and its developer, Cold Wild Games, are even more inspirational. This little studio just keeps chugging along. They are the personification of Jake Burkett's GDC video on surviving as an indie dev without a single hit. I mean, to be fair, their other game, Merchant of the Skies, could be defined as a hit with over 1,000 Steam reviews, but that game is not a one-hit wonder for these guys. They keep releasing games and have been consistently for 6 years. If you haven't heard of this studio, go check out their YouTube channel, I'll link it in the description below. Vlad's monthly report videos are really interesting, down to earth, and pretty funny.
We actually turned a small profit. Yay.
I think the one word that best characterizes these games is progression. Now, obviously progression is a huge part of any game, but the unique thing about these successful short games is that the whole game plays like a progression simulator. In a short hike, obtaining another feather unlocks new abilities and new map areas that keeps the game interesting and keeps the player reeled in for the whole 2 hours. And similarly, in Luna's Fishing Garden, the gameplay loop stays fresh every time you unlock a new plant for your garden or a new fishing spot. Both games give the player a feeling of weakness at the start, having to pick up each individual plant yourself in Luna's Fishing Garden and only having 2 feathers to fly around with in a short hike. By the end of Luna's Fishing Garden, you unlock little animal helpers that pick up and sell items for you. Your income increases exponentially, and while the game is pretty much over at this point, you have a feeling of accomplishment that really pays off. And same with a short hike. Once you have about 10 feathers, the struggle to get up the mountain is gone, but being able to get anywhere you want with no hassle makes you feel as free as a bird. Which makes sense, because you are a bird. This will probably be my philosophy going forward with any game I develop. Make sure that you're a bird. No, keep it short, keep it simple, find a catchy game mechanic with a sense of progression and milk it for 2 hours relentlessly. I haven't reached that satisfying feeling of progression for Minimart quite yet, but I have made a ton of progress that I'm really proud of since working on it full time. I've added different size stores, customizable floors, a weather system, a time system, a home to live in, an NPC named Floyd, a water dispenser you can actually drink out of, customers that drop dirt, a mop to clean it up, a janitor to do it for you, and you can build and tear down your shelves for merchandise. I've done a ton under the hood updating messy game jam code, and I finally got around to learning Git. And that's where we are today. I still have so much to do in just 5 or 6 months. My hope is to have a little mini town where you can decide what to do with your morning, day, or night. You can upgrade stats like speed or strength for running around or carrying boxes. And instead of having simple unlockables through menus, I want progression to happen through relationship milestones. So if you get to a certain relationship status with a towns member, they'll offer you their services for hire or a new merch for you to sell. If you made it this far through my ramblings and game dev life story, I really appreciate it. I hope you stick around and subscribe, or come back and check in on my progress once in a while. Like I mentioned before, the Steam page is up and running, so go wishlist the game if you like what you see. If you have any suggestions or questions about the game, please let me know in the comments. I will read every single one of them. And again, if you need help with math or science, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you have a game that needs music, check out my YouTube, check out my Twitter, and you could DM me or email me at toomanyfishstudios@gmail.com. And that's it. Devlog number 1 is done. I'm hoping to have more videos out. This has been a lot of fun. So hopefully I'll have like weekly update videos or something. We'll see.